He's on the shortest list of the most talented, consistent, and exciting players of his generation. Greg Norman is the most successful businessman among his peers. While still in the definition phase, his playing record provokes uneasy questions about the past. And age and motivation are questions we have about his future. Meet the great white shark, Greg Norman, now on Golf Talk Live. The following is an encore presentation of Golf Talk Live. No matter how much he contends, no matter how much he wins, no matter how many times he picks himself up after blows that would destroy lesser men, Greg Norman's fans and critics expect and demand more of him. He's had miracles performed against him to deny him championships. He's also gotten in his own way to deny himself championships. He's been given so many gifts, and he's made the most of them. He's won wherever golf is played. In his homeland of Australia, in his adopted home in the United States, in Europe, in Asia, in Great Britain. He has 86 pro victories around the world, winning from behind, winning when in front, or winning in playoffs. He's won spectacularly with chip-ins in playoffs. He's lost spectacularly with X's in major championship playoffs. He drives, he flies, he hunts for sharks. He drives the ball with a combination of power and accuracy to rival anyone who's ever played the game. He has the touch of a surgeon, of an artist. He says what he thinks, whether you like it or not. He's the greatest contender for major championships since the prime of Jack Nicklaus. He's dashing and a swashbuckler. Just the mention of his name inspires heated debates about his incredible successes and equally incredible crashes. Not since the prime of Barney has any player been more fascinating to watch. For his brilliance, for his inconsistency, for the emotions he allows the world to see, for the excitement he's brought to the game, for the class with which he wins graciously and loses graciously and with dignity, yet somehow never forgetting that golf is a game, a cruel game sometimes, but just a game. Welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm Peter Kessler. Great pleasure to welcome to our show a fellow who's a major champion on and off the golf course, Greg Norman. Great to see you here.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
You going to drop me off in the helicopter on the way home?
Where do you want to go?
Just a couple of minutes away as the helicopter flies.
As long as I keep drinking water, we're okay.
We'll take good care. Actually, we're going to have a little wine later.
That is water in here, isn't it?
And take a sip and find out. For a guy who's won 86 times as a professional since 1976, does any of them mean more to you than that Stableford you won with your dad at Virginia Golf Club when you were 16, right after you began to play?
I'd have to say, Peter, the very first tournament I won, which was the West Lakes Classic in 1976 in Adelaide. I came straight out of the box. I came out a different way, being an assistant pro. I couldn't just turn pro. I had to go through a 3-year apprenticeship course. I had to learn how to make golf clubs, and I look around here on the stage and I see some of these classic old golf clubs, and And I remember having to do that myself to get through my apprenticeship course to be able to go and play tournament golf. So I did a 3-year course in 2 years, and I got my playing credentials were good enough because I was winning trainee Monday outings, and I got an invitation to play. And they allowed me to cut my schedule a year short after 2 years, and they let me go play. And I won the 3rd tournament I ever played in. And I thought I was the richest man in the world, winning I think 7,000 Australian dollars in those days. And that gave me enough money to put in my pocket to book a ticket to Japan, and then from there I booked a ticket to go on to Europe, and that was pretty much the start of my career.
And that was no eke it out win. I mean, that was 10 shots on Saturday night. It ended up a 5-shot lead on Sunday, and it wasn't exactly a country club affair. David Graham was there, Bruce Devlin was there, and that was 23 years ago when those fellows were in their prime.
Well, the guy who intimidated me the most that week was Bruce Crampton. And because I didn't know Bruce, I was just a young kid on the block, 3 tournaments old, and I had this image of Bruce Crampton of being, very stoic and, this way.
Because he is.
He's very, yeah, he is. But I had this image of Bruce Crampton. I was good friends with David Graham and Bruce Devlin and Peter Thompson because they kind of helped me evolve a little bit. And but Bruce, I had this image. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be playing against Bruce Crampton. I got to be this. I got to be that. All the things that race through your mind that when you're at that time 21 years old. And to me, beating him, because he had that image of being unbeatable because he played so tough. When I beat Bruce Crampton, I thought, boy, I think I'm going to be a pretty good player.
What did it mean to you when Peter Thompson, your fellow countryman in Australia, 5-time British Open champion, who doesn't give out a compliment lightly, said, I think that Greg Norman is going to be the greatest player in the world? What does that mean to somebody who's 21 and in there, I thought it was your 4th pro event, you tell me it's your 3rd, wins? What does that mean to somebody that young and impressionable when somebody like Peter Thompson speaks?
Well, believe it or not, you're so young you probably don't hear it because there's a lot of other things going on in your mind. I'm very much a self-motivated, self-directional individual, and all my ambition was to be the best I could be. And when everybody throws these statements at you or about you in the paper and you read about them, I kind of just let them drift away because I'm the type of guy, I do not want to get wrapped up in things like that. I'm a very low-keyed individual. I like to stay a bit much in the background. And I was very, very introverted kid at 21 years old. I was very quiet, very laid back, and so I really didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. But I knew where I wanted to go. Deep down in my heart, I knew where I wanted to go. And all I wanted to do was just play golf. And the game of golf was the game of golf to me. It was just a pure game, and I wanted to go play it the best I could.
Despite the way that you look, and despite the bravado with which you play your sport, people who know you pretty well say that secretly you're kind of shy and still a little bit of an introvert. Do you think that's true?
Oh, very much so. I'm a very reluctant celebrity. I really am.
You don't look like a reluctant celebrity.
Well, I think over a period of time it evolves. You got to learn to step yourself into place because the responsibility of what the game has given me, I have to accept a lot of that responsibility because other people look to what you say and what you do. So you have to step up to the plate, basically. But I'm still very much, I'd rather be in the background. I'd rather just disappear into a crowd and do my own thing. If I go away fishing and diving, I'd rather not have anybody know that I'm going fishing or diving. I think the people who work for me probably know that as well as anybody. I mean, I'd rather not go somewhere where there's a crowd. I'd rather just go with a couple of guys or a couple of people who work for me and just enjoy the evening.
Most of the great players had as their influence their dad. But in your household, the really good player was your mom, and it was really through her golf that you got started, wasn't it?
Very much so. It was pretty much, I must have been about 15 and a half, 16 years old. I call it 16 because it's rounded off to the next highest number. But I went
I would
out.
have thought you would be a guy who rounded down because it's golf we play.
Well, that's true. And for taxes, too, you might want to round down. But no, my mother played, and my father, we moved cities from Townsville down to Brisbane. And in doing so, I left all my buddies who I played football with and I played cricket with, and I really didn't play a whole lot of golf up in Townsville. So when I moved down to Brisbane, I went out and caddied for my mother one day, and you know, my mother in those days I think was about a 4 or 5 handicap. I really can't remember what it is. And she's 5'3" and weighs about 102 pounds and hits the ball beautifully. And I caddied for her, and I said, well, she went in and had a cup of tea. I took her clubs out and played the last 3 or 4 holes at Virginia Golf Club. And I went, wow, this game's pretty good. You know, I got a big kick out of hitting a ball where I hit it, whether it was straight or whether it was crooked. And the bug bit me right there and then, and I was off and running.
Are you still friendly at all with the guys that you grew up with, the 3 or 4 guys that you would really hang out with and surf and spearfish with, or does that become impossible as you became who you are?
It's become a little bit impossible. There's 2 guys I probably remember the most, Greg Lyons and Peter Hay, who I have. Greg Lyons I keep in contact a little bit more. Matter of fact, we just had some correspondence in the last month. But and Peter Hay I see a little bit. You know, we grew up together. Greg Lyons and I were high school buddies all the way through and through. And you know, but really living over here in the United States, and when I go back to Australia, I really go back there to work. I don't go back for a holiday. And my workload in Australia is very, very heavy because I only go back for 4 or 5 weeks a year. So I normally have to do functions 4 or 5 nights a week, and then I only have 1 night off, and that night I normally like to stay in with Laura in the hotel room and just chill out a little bit. So it's a very demanding schedule down there. So unfortunately, I don't get to see him. And that's the sad part about being one of those celebrities, I suppose, where you have an obligation to other people. You have business obligations, and unfortunately, there's a sacrifice. And golf has always been that way, Peter. If you're going to be a successful individual at anything, you have to understand there's got to be huge sacrifices somewhere along the line. Is it sacrifices within yourself? Sure it is. Is it sacrifices that you make mistakes and screw it up? Sure it is. Is it sacrifices with your time away from your loved ones, your wife, your kids, your friends, your family? Sure it is. But you have to understand that that's a priority of yours if you want to achieve a certain level. It doesn't matter whether it's golf, any sport, business, to be the best what you do, you have to make sacrifices. And unless you're willing to do that for an extended period of time, then you're not going to get to where you want to be.
Did you ever call the 2 guys that you said to when you were 21, hey, before I turn 30, I'm going to have $1 million in the bank, and I'm going to call you to tell you I've got it in the bank? Did you make the call?
Oh, I sure do. Unfortunately, one of them since passed away. But,
Sorry. Because you shocked him.
Shocked him, you know, because we used to sit in the back of a bus going from Brisbane to Grafton and drink beer and play cards because we used to play these inter-club matches. And Lloyd Bode and Kevin Murphy and Kevin Flanagan and those guys, we'd sit back there and play, and I'd say, boys, exactly what you said. You know, when I'm 30, I'll be a millionaire and I'll be married to America. And they look at me, go and have another Forex, you nuthead. So, I mean, those are the type of things that you think back on and you say, well, you make a very, very prophetic statement, and then at the end of the day, it turns true. It's like with my wife, Laura. I met her on a flight in 1979 from Inverness in Toledo, Ohio, after the U.S. Open. She was working for American Airlines. And I walked on board the plane, and she was standing there at the entrance of the plane as you come on, and she was greeting everybody. And I sat down in 4th row with my then business manager, and I said to James, James, I bet you I'd marry that woman. And I'd never said a word to Laura. I'd never, you know, I just looked up, I saw her, I went, wow. And that was it. And still to this day, I don't think she believes that I actually said that to James, but that's a fact.
And as we go to break for just a moment, why don't we take a look at what the 2 of you produced together, your son Gregory, your daughter Morgan Lee. Let's take a look at what's actually you and the kids. Oh, it's you as a kid. That was you and your sister. That was you and your sister, and that was you without teeth in the first one.
Well, there's me, an Air Force cadet. And that was...
Beach bum.
Beach bum, actually winning my first...
You still have that hat, right?
Now my mother burned it.
Finally, we'll be right back. If you weren't you, and just you were a Greg Norman fan, which I suppose you are anyway, but let's assume that you're not you for the moment. How many majors should Greg Norman have in your view? And how many does he need to have ultimately for you, who is not Greg Norman to consider him one of the 10 or 12 greatest players that ever lived?
That's the first time somebody's ever asked me that type of question. That's
I
very
am
good.
delighted
Very,
to hear
very
that.
good, actually.
That's actually the answer I was looking for.
Stepping out of my shoes, I would probably have to say probably three more tournaments I would have thought he could have won. But circumstances weren't right at the time for that to happen. Now, speaking as Greg Norman,
Please do.
Greg Norman screwed up a few times too, you know. Greg Norman's made the mistakes at the wrong time. But also Greg Norman's been on the other side of the fence of the receiving end. And I think that's the greatest part about the game of golf. I'll answer the latter part of the question about how many do I think he needs to have. But I think that's the greatest part about this game. It's purely a game. And to me, all the game of golf is just a part of a tournament of life. And no matter what you do in the game of golf, it doesn't matter how many major championships you have, doesn't matter what tournaments you've won, doesn't matter if you've ever won a golf tournament. It's the commitment that you give to yourself and to the game is what, to me, is the measure of how great you are within yourself. And just because I haven't won the major championships that I could have won or I didn't win or people expected me to, doesn't mean to say that I'm any less of an individual or less of a person to A, the public or B, the media. It's just that I feel right now that if I stop playing golf right now, Peter, that I have achieved everything I want to achieve in the game of golf because I've been there. I've experienced the highs, the agony, and the ecstasy. I've experienced those things that very, very few people ever get a chance to do. And believe me, it's the most unique thing that you could ever feel right here in your heart. The days you sit back and you cry on the beach, the days you celebrate with your friends, with the trophies. People never get to see that or understand that or feel that. And to me, that's what the tournament of life is all about. So on a scale of 1 to 10 of where I am in the tournament of life, I think I'm very, very high up on that because I've done a great job of balancing my life between my golf and my family and my business and myself and my people around me. And to me, that means more to me than anything else.
What would your answer be to the last part of the question, that how many do you need to have to be among the dozen greatest ever?
Well, I think I kind of answered that. Like I said, if I didn't win any more, it's not me to judge that. I mean, I'm not a person who lays judgment on anybody. I'm a person who feels that that's up to other people to say that. I feel that, like I said, I've achieved just about everything I wanted to achieve. Of course, I would love to win the Masters. Now, of course, I'd love to win the US Open. Of course, I'd love to win the PGA to say that I won the Slam. But if it doesn't happen, I've got a lot more in life than a lot of other people. I'm more fortunate than a lot of other people. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got great kids. I've got, my life couldn't be any better. So to equate trophies and victories, it doesn't enter into my realm of factoring in how's your life going to be.
One of the greatest years that anybody ever had playing golf was you in 1986. This year, in 1999, Tiger won 10 times in a major. In 1986, you won 10 times, including a major. And one of the amazing things about 1986 is you are as well remembered, or not as well remembered, for those 10 wins as you are for some of the losses, despite the fact that you won a major, despite the fact that you won 10 times. Let's take a look together at the last few holes of the 86 Masters, and to set the scene for everybody, you had a one-shot lead. You had a lead in all the Masters that year on Saturday night, but going into Sunday, you had a one-shot lead, and you had Jack Nicklaus 4 shots behind you, and as you got to the 14th, he was just about done with play at 9 under. You needed to go 4 under on the last 5 holes to catch him. So let's pick it up, and we've got a little cheat sheet here of what we've got on the screen. So let's go ahead and pick it up, I think on 14, and we'll take a look at it. I'm going to give you this sheet right at the top there. This is your putt for birdie on 14 and 86.
Well, I got to tell you, just before this putt, I was playing with Nicky Price, I believe. And I walked up to Nicky and I said to him, let's show these people this tournament's not over and done with. And because everybody was moving with Jack. The whole gallery was there, and I think you see, look at that, you've never seen the 16th gallery there looked so thin because everybody had gone to see Jack. So, I mean, that was one situation there that I just cold pulled it.
Now, of course, you had birdied 14, 15, and you made that little putt on 16. And here we are in 17 for 4 in a row.
Yes, sir.
So I think I'm not very pumped up there.
I had a feeling that you were. Now, does that pumped up hurt you on this particular iron because you think, you know what, I'm going to make a 5th birdie in a row. I'm just going to win the darn thing outright.
Well, this is where I make the mistake, right here, this shot. I was right in between yardages with my club. And under certain circumstances, you're better off going and wailing away with a full shot. I tried to back off a 4-iron instead of hitting a hard 5-iron because I was trying to stick the ball back at the flag. And I knew if I mishit it, then I had enough club to get me there. So because of the uphill lie of the 18th hole, and because I wasn't accelerating as hard as I should have at the ball because gravity wants a tendency to pull you back down the slope, I just fell off the shot a little bit and fanned it way right. If I had that shot over again, which is one of the shots I would really love to have over again, because I would love to have gotten to play off of Jack Nicklaus, but would be that, because I know I would pull out. I think if my memory's right, I had 187 yards. And I know that was just hit the 5-iron as hard as you can and just let your body just do all the work, and where I was trying to manufacture something. So I definitely screwed up in that situation.
As we leave for just a minute, we'll take a look at a graphic of some of the highlights from 1986, one of the greatest years anybody's ever had. 10 wins, 1 major, and we'll be right back. People love to talk about your disasters. They love to talk about, and we will later, about 1996 and you and Nick Faldo at the Masters. But what people probably generally forget is that in 1993, it was Nick Faldo who had the lead on Saturday night. And despite the fact that he shot a 67 in the final round, he lost by 2 shots to you, who shot 64. And that 64 could have been a couple of shots better. I can think of a couple, and therefore you can too. It's the best Open Championship anybody's ever had. The lowest score, you've got 4 rounds under 70, and the lowest score by a winner in the history of the championship. The only thing that's questionable about it is that flamenco dancer's outfit you wore on the Sunday. But let's go ahead
Very good.
let's go ahead and take a look at it. And I thought you'd like to rip through it with us and tell us what's going on. This is one of the great rounds of golf ever. And here you are on the par 3 third, and there's a little list for you.
Okay, what am I doing on the 3rd hole? I got to
Something
watch this
good.
a little bit. This is the long par 3 here, and I think this is where, at that time, I had just had a great lesson with Butch Harmon, and we just came off the driving range. We actually went to a quiet place, and he really got me into a good frame of mind about where my swing was at the time. And yeah, the great part about the British Open is you can be very aggressive with your putting, because the greens truly aren't rolling at 11.5, 12, because if the wind blows around there, they'd be blowing off the green. So they're an honest 9.5, 10. So if you've got an aggressive putting stroke going on that day or that week, you can take advantage of it.
Did you miss a shot all day for a guy who hopes to hit 6 or 7 nearly perfect shots around? What would you say the number was that day? Much higher?
That was much higher then. I hit the ball extremely well. I think the only shot that I did miss hit was probably 15, maybe the par 4. I left it out there.
Might have even been a misjudgment of the wind.
Might have been, but I don't think I hit that ball as solidly as I would like. But here is a situation where when you've got the greatest players in the world all charging at you and they're all on the leaderboard, you just have to stay within your own zone. You have to stay within your own. You can't get caught up on what the leaderboard's doing. And this hole, believe it or not, Number 9, Peter, I said to myself, walking down the fairway, I want a 1-shot lead going to the 10th tee, because Larry Bird once told me, he said, I want that ball with 2 seconds left and we're 1 point behind. I want that last shot. And when I hit that, however close it was, a 9, I wanted that lead so bad going to the 10th tee that I wasn't going to let it go. And I just kept my game going. And that was enough of an inspiration for me for the back 9 holes to do what I kept on doing.
What was it about you that day that let you play the kind of golf that we always want to see Greg Norman play in the final round? We know it's unrealistic to expect you to do that all the time, but we'd like to see you do it more. What happened that day that it should work so beautifully in every respect? You managed your emotions beautifully, you stayed on an even keel, you managed the course beautifully, you didn't fire at every single pin, there was a judicious mix of conservative and aggressive, and so you managed your game, your course, and the emotions perhaps better than you ever did before or since. Would you agree?
Absolutely, and you know, this was the capping off on the 4-iron into the last hole, and you'll hear Tony Navarro's voice in the background go, or something like that. And he just knew the day was finally coming to an end, and we just did all the right things. But
well, he's been on a roller coaster ride with you forever.
But Peter, why was that day so good? Why did I control all my emotions? We're human beings. And that's the great thing about it. We're humans. We're not machines. We don't just go out there and churn it out time and time again. I'm glad I'm that way. I'm glad I have this emotional roller coaster ride, because even though some people might think it's heartbreaking, I kind of enjoy it. There's times I wish it wasn't as bad as what it is, but I think that's all part and parcel of being a golfer and being a human being, because we are not machines. We do make mistakes within our own head. And at the end of the day, they're the moments you enjoy.
Bernhard Langer, with whom you were paired, said to you it was the greatest round of golf that he had ever seen. Gene Sarazen, who was watching majors since 1920, and he was caddying the day Francis Ouimet won the Open in 1913, said it was the greatest 4 rounds in major championship history, and he's seen every great player, including Harry Vardon, this century. What do you think happens to you under pressure when everything goes wrong? What goes on with Greg Norman?
No, maybe I get a little bit ahead of myself. I've got to say I'm an extremely confident individual, and sometimes having the confidence, you feel like you can bail yourself out of trouble whenever you get into trouble. 96 Masters, that's probably where I screwed up the most. If I'm going to blame anybody, I'm going to purely blame myself for the 96 Masters. Is where I felt so very good and so very relaxed right up until the first tee. I never anticipated that going to happen that day. And as the day started to evolve, the more I started to let it slip. The more I started to let it slip, the more I was fighting myself. And so as the day went on, I've got this internal battle going on, which I had never experienced before on a golf course in my life. One half of me is tearing me this way, and the other half of me is tearing me that way. And I kept fighting myself. I kept fighting and fighting. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're crazy? Why don't you just relax and just go play golf? And it was just an amazing sequence of events for the last 11 holes. So I learned a lot about myself in those last 11 holes. I learned a lot about myself and about people in 1996, about the reaction of people and about the reaction of myself. And sure, I was extremely, torn up about that because when you do it to yourself, you can go at yourself a little bit differently. When somebody else does it to you, you just brush it off and keep going. So you become a bit more of a psychoanalytical in lots of ways. You'll sit back and become more reflective. Why did I have this internal battle? What was it? Was it my golf swing? Was it my mental approach? Was it my physical approach? Was I hurting? You look for all types of stupid reasons and excuses, and at the end of the day, you just screwed up. At the end of the day, I probably just pushed myself a little bit too hard, and the harder you push that accelerator down, the harder it is to perform. And I think that was probably, at the end of the day, when I sit here and talk about it, I think that's probably what happened to me.
And your routine even that day got so long for you. Mm-hmm. It was 8 and 10 seconds long.
There's an example of fighting the battle within. See, because I was saying to myself in those situations, don't hit the shot until you see it. Don't hit the shot until you see it.
And Tony was telling you that too.
Yeah, but you can't sit there for that 8 or 10 seconds longer and try and see a shot in that period of time. That shot should have been seen pre-shot routine, not standing over the ball. So the longer I stood there, the longer I said, don't hit the shot until you see it. And you just can't do that. And that's the battle. And that's that internal battle that I was having with myself all day. And you know what? No matter what your caddy says and no matter what anybody says, it's very difficult to drag yourself out of it. You've got to work. I mean, there's different ways I go about things now when I feel myself getting in that way. I have a tendency of, questioning myself differently to snap myself out, because I've learned that I don't want to go back into that situation again. So, you figure out a way within yourself to change that, to re-gear yourself.
Nick Faldo shot the best round of the weekend that day. I mean, it took Nick Faldo specifically playing his best golf to help you hurt yourself during the process. He also had to play great. He had to help him while you helped him. Do you think that the tournament will be remembered as Nick would like to remember it, as the day that he came roaring through with the 67, or the day that you reminded us of Arnie in 66 at Olympic when he lost 7 shots over 9 holes? You only lost you lost your 6-shot lead and a whole bunch more over the 18 holes. When Arnold walked out of the clubhouse after losing the playoff to Billy Casper and having lost that big lead, they tried to get him out a side door so that he could avoid the crowds. And Arnold said, "No, I'm going out the front door, because whatever they want to do to me, I deserve." How did you feel that day about what you did or didn't deserve from the crowd and the fans?
Exactly, probably, I didn't say those words to myself, but probably exactly the same way as Arnold felt. You've got to be a great winner and you've got to be a great loser. And I lost that day. I lost within myself, and I lost the golf tournament, a tournament I ideally want to win. So you have to accept your medicine. You got to stand up there and stick your chin out and just let them have a shot at you. But if you run away, like a few other players have done at that golf tournament, and not go to talk to the media, and I've seen this happen many, many times, I think that's a sad reflection on the game. I think that's a sad reflection on sport. It's a sad reflection on the people who follow the game, to the media. You may not like the media sometimes, but the media, that's their job. They have to cover the event. So you've got to go up there and you've got to take your medicine. Whether you like it or not, you've got to take your medicine. And Arnold Palmer was absolutely right. That's why Arnold Palmer is Arnold Palmer. That's why he established the game of golf on such a high pedestal and gave us all the ability to be sitting here and talking about the game of golf. So all I'm trying to do is just maintain that integrity, maintain the morals, and maintain the ethics that have already been pre-established.
Will it be fair if the tournament's remembered as the one that Nick won as opposed to the one that you gave him?
It should be. It should be. I'd hate to see it any other way, because whenever somebody wins, they win. Yeah, sure, people lose, but the winner is the winner, and you should always leave it at that. And I hope Nick always receives the credit and the accolades he should receive for 96 U.S. Masters.
We'll be right back. Don't go away.